Hey Twisters, for this video, let's talk about the best tradition for each NHL team, and this spans the gamut. You're gonna really like this one. I've been fired up to produce this for a long time. And let me know in the comments down below, is there a tradition that I missed? And second of all, what's your favorite tradition in hockey? It doesn't have to be just specific to one team. And if you're new here, we're gonna be putting out all sorts of content covering the NHL season, so stick around if you wanna hang out with awesome hockey fans like ourselves. Now, I did this completely at random, and the first team that I came up with here is the Montreal Canadiens. Pretty great way to start, so I chose the Olé chant.
The sounds that Montreal's been waiting to make, and the fans.
That started in the 1980s in Spain with soccer, and I don't know exactly what year the Canadiens ported that over, but it is a great chant to let out when the Canadiens are nearing a victory, when it's the playoffs, right? For the Philadelphia Flyers, I think that their best tradition right now is that they actually display all of the hats that have been thrown onto the ice after a hat trick, and they've done that since 1996 when the Wells Fargo Center opened up. That's pretty nuts. I mean, we're talking about seeing thousands and thousands of these things when you walk into the arena. They have all sorts of great memorabilia that they've kept from over the years. They have a scroll of the 112 season ticket holders from the franchise's inception back to 1967, 1968. And so Flyers fans, let me know, I mean, how prominent are these hats on display? I know that they have them like up in the ceiling everywhere you can possibly imagine. For the Los Angeles Kings, I couldn't find a specific tradition, but as a Sharks fan, it's very easy for me to remember this one. It's their Eric Cartman comics, so they'll put him up on the Jumbotron, and he'll get the fans fired up by bashing the opponent of another team. For the Winnipeg Jets, this one's pretty obvious here. It's the Winnipeg Whiteout. This dates all the way back to 1986 with the original Winnipeg Jets franchise. When they were playing the Calgary Flames in the playoffs, the marketing team decided, hey, it would be a great idea to get everybody to wear white. That would be very easy for all the fans to bring in something white into the arena. There was even a cheesy song. Another one, though, that I have to mention is True North. So True North Sports and Entertainment owns the Winnipeg Jets. And of course, that's part of O Canada, you know, the Canadian national anthem. So every time the singer sings True North, everybody screams. And actually, there's another team that does the Winnipeg Whiteout, and that's the Arizona Coyotes, because they are the original Winnipeg Jets. They moved to Arizona in 1996. And that year, that first season, they made the playoffs and actually carried over that Winnipeg Whiteout tradition right then and there. And that continued as they would make the playoffs a few more times leading up until about 2012. But ever since then, they haven't actually hosted a home playoff game. So hopefully that changes in the near future and the Winnipeg Whiteout could come back. For the Calgary Flames, this one's pretty easy, and so will be the next team. It's the Sea of Red. So they started this back in the 1980s. Everybody wears red, and really when you look at it, most people are wearing an actual red Flames jersey. So it creates a very intense kind of hostile atmosphere, and it makes for a great experience whether on TV or inside the arena. For the Edmonton Oilers, I'm going to talk about two traditions. So first of all, there is the Orange Surge, which I think is still active. This goes all the way back to when the Oilers were playing in the World Hockey Association and wore orange back then before they switched to blue. But during the mid-2010s, when the Oilers unveiled an orange alternate jersey, that kind of spawned this tradition of the fans wearing orange during the playoffs. This carried over into the Adidas era, you know, just a couple years ago when the Oilers were still wearing orange at home. The other tradition actually became a league-wide tradition. We'll have several examples of that in this video. I think that makes it even more exciting. So in 1988, when Wayne Gretzky was playing his final season in Edmonton, they won the Stanley Cup, and he spontaneously gathered all of his teammates out into center ice to take a photo. So that's actually a tradition that was born by the Great One himself. And also, he started passing the Stanley Cup to teammates so that they could skate around the ice and hoist it up for the fans and for their friends and family. That was something that was only performed by captains up until then. For the St. Louis Blues, they have so many different traditions. Really, it's all about the music with them. So they have a live organist, one of the few teams that has that. Jeremy Boyer is the organist, and he'll play an arrangement of the 1914 song St. Louis Blues and When the Saints Go Marching In. Recently, they just announced that local blues artist Marquise Knox will also be featured with an original song for the team's pregame intro. Their goal song is one that was created by a local band called The Urge, so that's the one that says "Let's Go Blues." And how could I forget Gloria as their sort of victory song, their rallying cry back in the 2019 playoffs, and how all the fans will sing Country Roads, midway through the third period. Some other teams do that, but the Blues do it especially well. I might have left out some other traditions. You can just take a look at Wikipedia and you can spend a few minutes reading up on that. Next, we have the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I want to shout out our MVP here, Mike Thompson, because he informed me that since 2007, the Penguins players have personally delivered season tickets to the season ticket holders. That's pretty awesome. So I'll play a clip from one family here who has had season tickets since 1979, great Smashing Pumpkins song, but they didn't know that this year it would be Sidney Crosby coming to their house with the season tickets, and then later that day, he got to surprise a 14-year-old boy on his birthday. That's pretty darn special. Chris Letang, Jake Gensel, Brian Rust, and Tristan Jarry also helped out. Now we get to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and so I'll shout out ADF here. The Thunderstruck pregame intro with the Tesla coils always gets Amalie Arena rocking and ready to go. I actually got to experience that myself a few seasons ago. So for anybody who doesn't know, a Tesla coil is a resonant transformer circuit that generates high voltage but low current electricity. So basically the arena will actually shoot out these bolts that you can visibly see to the tune of AC/DC's Thunderstruck. Just a great atmosphere to get people pumped up before the game. For the Columbus Blue Jackets, it's, of course, the cannon, right? One of the great traditions in the NHL. This started all the way back in 2007. The cannon itself is an 1857 Civil War replica. It was purchased outside of St. Louis by the Blue Jackets staff. It's not using actual cannonball powder, otherwise that noise would be so loud that it would shatter all the glass. So it's actually a pyrotechnic charge, something that's used very similarly in concerts. And of course, it's accompanied by the tune For Those About to Rock by AC/DC, because that song actually features the sound of a cannon as well. Now for the Anaheim Ducks, let me know guys if I'm missing something, but I couldn't find an active tradition so much. I love Bro Hymn, the goal song, but I chose the national anthem up until about 2019. So for about a decade, a singer named Dawn Wright would sing the anthem, and of course, as part of the anthem, by the dawn's early light. Now, unfortunately, she had to have vocal cord surgery back in 2019, but even afterwards, as they brought in other singers, people would shout Dawn. Not to mention, she did something pretty unique. She would actually change keys when she would sing That Our Flag Was Still There. Then the key change happens. That our flag was still there. Now we get to the New Jersey Devils. Now this is not actually a specific team tradition. It started with the Devils and then carried over to other teams. So 102 years after the Stanley Cup was first awarded in 1893. So now we're talking about 1995. The Devils, winning their first Stanley Cup in franchise history, became the first team to permit each player on the team to spend a day with the Stanley Cup. So that means the player can take it to their hometown, they can show it to friends and family, to their coaches and mentors. It's a very special tradition, unlike anything else in professional sports. Now, I was really lucky because in 2021, my first summer in the Spokane, North Idaho area, Tyler Johnson, who's from the area, won the cup with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he took it over to the arena where the Spokane Chiefs play. That's where he played his major junior. And yeah, I got to take my picture with it. I don't know why I look so freakish in this photo, but it was a fantastic experience. Let me know, guys, in the chat, have you ever taken your picture with the Stanley Cup? I also got a picture here with Hockey Hall of Famer accompanying Johnson on this trip, and that is Phil Pritchard. And one thing I want to call out with the Devils here, Arlette Roxburgh has been the primary national anthem singer since 1996, so that is traditional, and Pete Canarazzi has been the organist since 2001. Now we have the Nashville Predators. They have a lot of different traditions for them. One that I personally like is how they'll smash a car that's painted up as their playoff opponent. But you guys chimed in here with throwing the catfish. That is something that we see with a few different teams. They'll throw something onto the ice. The catfish tradition started on October 30th, 2003 in a game against the Detroit Red Wings. We'll talk about them pretty soon. Friends of Captain Mike Fisher in 2017 even snuck one into the arena for Game 3 of the first round. And I have this video here to show you that the catfish was actually wrapped in plastic and attached to somebody's back. Now, these catfish can actually weigh over 15 pounds, so it's like carrying a fairly heavy backpack. You've probably also seen the Tennessee Titans players with a catfish and hyping the fans up. Now we get to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and there are a couple of great traditions I want to point out here. So the giant Canadian flag and the giant Maple Leaf flags that are unveiled or unfurled, I guess, at opposite ends of the arena for the singing of O Canada, that always looks fantastic. The tradition of Hockey Night in Canada actually started with Foster Hewitt and the Toronto Maple Leafs, but the one that I want to call out here is throwing hats onto the ice for a hat trick. That started with the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 1940s, so a little backstory. Maple Leafs owner Conn Smythe told the team's photographers that if they continued to take pictures of empty seats during games, they'd have to buy him a new hat. And back then it was very traditional for people to wear fedoras or very high quality hats. So after hearing about this, a local hat retailer offered to give any Maple Leafs player who scored 3 goals in a game a new hat for free. And once the public became aware of that, they started actually throwing their own hats onto the ice when a player scored 3 goals. Now we get to the New York Islanders, and I chose the yes, yes, yes chant after they have scored a goal. This originates from WWE wrestler Daniel Bryan, and he's actually led this chant at the arena before. And we've actually seen this carry over to other sports. I remember Hunter Pence of the San Francisco Giants actually leading the crowd in a chant of yes, yes, yes during their World Series run back in 2012. Now let's talk about the Detroit Red Wings, and that's why I'm wearing this classic jersey. So, of course, it's throwing the octopus. This goes all the way back to 1952 during the playoffs when brothers Pete and Jerry Cusimano tossed an octopus onto the ice. So, of course, an octopus has 8 limbs. A team needed to win 8 playoff games in order to win the Stanley Cup back then. And the Red Wings actually pulled off something that had never been done before. They won all 8 of those games consecutively. Then flash forward to the 1990s when the Red Wings are once again at the very peak of the NHL. In a 1995 playoff game, there were 36 octopi thrown onto the ice, including one that weighed as much as 30 or maybe 38 pounds. I saw different sources for that. And at the final game for Joe Louis Arena in 2016, 35 octopi were thrown then. Now back to 1995 here. So longtime ice manager Al Sobotka would be the one retrieving the octopi from the ice. And that spawned ultimately what became Al the Octopus, the team's pseudo mascot here. So not somebody walking around in a costume, but they had this giant, I don't know what the material was, but this giant octopus. They put a Red Wings jersey on him, and ultimately they would actually have 2 Al the Octopus because you would need 16 wins to win the Stanley Cup. So when the Red Wings would take the ice in a playoff game, you would have the 2 Als, and then they would be raised to the rafters as the team took the ice. Eventually they were sold off, or at least one of them. It was only for $7,700. I was surprised. I thought that it would have been a lot more than that, but lucky buyer, whoever that was. Also, one thing that I want to point out here is that in 1950, Ted Lindsay, Terrible Ted, became the first player of note to skate around the rink with the Stanley Cup and hoist it up. So that spawned one of the greatest traditions in hockey. Now we get to the New York Rangers, and after the 04-05 lockout, they actually did something that became a tradition in the NHL, although it was spawned from Europe, I believe, and that is saluting the crowd at center ice after a victory. So the players come to center ice, they raise their sticks, maybe they'll wave at somebody in the crowd, and that's a way of thanking the fans, especially after a lockout, for sticking with the team through the thick and thin. Now we get to the Vancouver Canucks, and a couple funny comments here, but I've got the rally towels. So that started in the NHL with the Vancouver Canucks back in 1982. Now how this came to be, against the Blackhawks in the conference final, coach Roger Nielsen and his team, they were on the wrong side of a lot of calls, so they were getting really pissed off at the officials. And so Roger Nielsen, what he does in defiance is he puts a white towel on one of the sticks and he raises it up looking at the ref to say, hey, we surrender, because, you know, they basically have been given no chance to win in this game. That actually galvanizes the locker room, and they go on to win the next 3 playoff games, including game 4, where I think the rally towels actually were available for fans. I have a photo here of one of them, and they ultimately lost in the Stanley Cup final. But even so, it was a magnificent run for this franchise, and that was later adopted by a bunch of other teams. All right, now we've got the Vegas Golden Knights. This team is just chock full of traditions, even though they're only a few years old. What don't they do? So throwing plastic flamingos onto the ice during goals or victories, gave proof through the night during the national anthem. They have a pre-game siren. They play Viva Las Vegas after every home win. But really, I think it's all about the pre-game show for the Golden Knights. This is basically Las Vegas Vegas epitomized as the entertainment capital of the country. It's something else, man. We're talking about actual performers in costume, a golden night on skates. You have somebody dressed up as the opponent and they'll clash at center ice. High quality cinematic videos with actors trying to tell a story about the Golden Knights, where they are in the season, the opponent that they're taking on. And then to wrap it up, you have nighttime when the golden helmet comes onto the ice and the skaters will come out to that with some crazy EDM music or whatever it is. So yeah, just an amazing experience and something that could definitely attract a lot of people who aren't necessarily hockey fans first, and then they become big hockey fans, especially with, you know, the winning product that they've put together pretty much overnight. I happen to draw the Seattle Kraken next, and so it's all about the yeet. So this is pretty simple. For the 3 stars of the game, the Kraken players who are honored for that will throw stuffed fish into the crowd, and it's called the yeet. And of course, that is kind of like what happens at Pike's Market downtown, where, you know, the fishmongers or whatever you want to call them will actually throw fish in a fun display for the tourists. For the Minnesota Wild, I chose Let's Play Hockey. So before the puck drops, the PA announcer turns it over to usually a kid or a celebrity, a Minnesota Wild alumnus, or some of the biggest fans of the franchise, season ticket holders, and they'll have a microphone and they'll scream, "Let's play hockey!
Let's play hockey!
Let's play hockey!"
Now to the Washington Capitals. The one that stands out to me is during the anthem. So Rockets Red Glare, everybody will shout red. I remember the Capitals being the first team to do that, but correct me if I'm wrong.
And the Rockets Red Glare.
Also, oh, say does that Star Spangled Banner. So everybody shouts,
Oh, say does that.
I think that has something to do with Alex Ovechkin. So they're honoring a player during the national anthem. That's pretty unique. Now we get to the Colorado Avalanche, and this one I thought was pretty easy. It's the fans singing Blink-182's All the Small Things. So this started in 2019 with longtime DJ Craig Turney, aka DJ Triple T. So the fans actually caught on to this pretty quickly and started singing along, but then COVID struck. But what he was able to do was he was able to get the Edmonton DJ to play the song during Avalanche playoff games when the playoffs were, you know, in that bubble there in Edmonton. And so the tradition was able to stay alive. And of course, everybody was singing All the Small Things. Avs fans were probably singing it to their TV when they were on their Stanley Cup run back in 2022. Now we get to the Buffalo Sabres. Now, I couldn't find a specific tradition with them. It's not like the Bills fans who like to body slam picnic tables, but one thing I think that is pretty unique to the Sabres is their chant, "Let's go Buffalo." So it's actually them chanting their city and not their actual mascot. I think they're the only NHL team that does that, but let me know in the comments if there's another team that does that. The next team is actually the one that defeated the Sabres in the '99 Stanley Cup, and that is the Dallas Stars. And this has to be Puck Off from the band Pantera, Cowboys from Hell, greatest metal band of the 1990s. So the Abbott brothers, Vinnie Paul and Dimebag Darrell, rest in peace, were playing some golf with some Stars players, and one of the Stars suggested, hey, you guys should actually make a song for us. And they were like, okay, well, shoot, you guys play the Oilers in game 1 of the playoffs tomorrow, so we're going to get to work right away. And the song is an immediate hit. The Stars actually win at least 5 straight home games with that as their goal song, and it was so popular that the Stars players actually wanted to take that on the road with them and play that in the locker room, so Pantera was able to send them a copy of that song. And of course, later on, the Stars would win the Stanley Cup, and Pantera would actually perform at the Stanley Cup parade. Our next team is the Carolina Hurricanes. They have a few great traditions of their own, but some of you out there pointed out their number one tradition has to be the Storm Surge. And now this actually dates back to 2016 when the Icelandic national soccer team was playing in the Euro tournament, and the fans would do something that we referred to as the Viking Thunderclap. It would catch on with the Minnesota Vikings of the NFL, so now all the fans have what we call the skull chant, right? I've been there, it's an amazing experience. And then shortly after, the Hurricanes start doing this after home victories. So it started with Captain Justin Williams during the 2018-19 season as the team was turning itself around and actually being a competitive club for the first time in a decade. They got even more crazy with their antics. It wouldn't just be the storm clap, but they would also add on things like doing limbo at center ice or bringing out a basketball hoop and dunking on it. And from that, Don Cherry coined the moniker the Bunch of Jerks for the Hurricanes, and the team just absolutely embraced it 100%. They would wear shirts, the fans would wear shirts that said Bunch of Jerks. And so, yeah, it's one of the great traditions for a non-traditional market. Our next team here is the Ottawa Senators. Now, in the comments, let me know if there's a real active tradition right now, but the best one I could find was the Sons of Scotland Pipe Band and the Highland Dancers. So I guess that